Nova, she was a female African slave, and she was owned by a person that was well known and had power and wealth.
Don't go to Chica, somebody else is gonna do Chica.
Oh, I apologize. Well, basically, that was an example, but the females, sometimes they were prostitutes or owned by some of these slave owners. So what would happen, after they're free, they would still stay with that individual, and they would be spouses, and they would have children, and would be integrated in mixed race, but they would, let's say, abandon their African roots and pretend to be white, or be someone different, higher color, to be in a higher status, basically.
Okay, fine. All right. Colonialism. 15th, 16th, 17th century. Commodity of sugar. Exportation. Economic wealth for Brazil, for the Portuguese, for the colonizers. Sugar is their moneymaker. It is sweet. It is something that is new to the new world. And what you have is you have these Portuguese, thank you, colonizers who are becoming extremely wealthy off of this export, this merchandise, off of the backs, as we can see, of the slaves. These black slaves who are free labor, just as in Africa. So the story is the same. The notion of working the person of color, the African, if you will. The difference here is that, and it's said in the film, in the documentary, the notion that we can treat this black slave even harsher than we do the others because it's easier to get them. The voyage is shorter from Africa to Brazil. You understand? So we do not have to worry about feeding, clothing, sheltering them. We can truly abuse them psychologically and physically. And in the picture I wanted to show you, you would have seen that, but that didn't happen. So therefore I'm telling you, they were treated as if they were non-human. They were branded. Brazil branded, Trinidad branded. They branded on the shoulder. They branded on the forehead. So when you moved across the diaspora, if a slave tried to run away, you could tell who they were and who they belonged to, rather, by the brand. They were branded just as cattle was branded. You know how you brand your horse or your cattle? You put the iron in the fire. Same thing to the human being. Now, prayer speaks about living openly and together with the slave, the female slave. Because when you look out on his plantation and other plantations, you do not see the white Portuguese woman, which one might suggest should be their companion. But we know the Portuguese women have not traveled with the men across the waters. You understand? So therefore the companion of choice, of necessity, and because she is a commodity, is the black female slave. His understanding is such that because we are living together, because we are in relationship. And when I look out and I see the product of this relationship, children who are cream de cocoa, vanilla, ebony, ivory, chocolate. The suggestion is that they are ours. They belong to us. That symbiotic relationship is embedded in our DNA. It runs deeply. They have become the family on the plantation. So his notion is different than others. Do you understand? And that's why Dr. Henry Louis Gates says that his writings would have shocked those across the waters in America, because America does not see their black female slaves as someone that they can dress up, dance with, live in the same household openly. The difference in the United States, and I know the back is going to get to that, the difference in the United States is that the black female slave is always considered less than. But on this plantation, there's the notion of relationship. He sees it differently, and he expresses it as such in his writings. And that's why some might suggest that it's extremely controversial how he's looking at the black female, especially being a white Portuguese man, moneyed man, economics, he is rich. The Catholic Church knows these relationships exist. And there is the notion of silence. So that when, as Dr. Louis Gates said, when the bishop comes to town, he says, everybody separates and goes their own way. He goes to his household. She goes to her household. But, they say, when the bishop leaves town, they say, did he leave town? Yes. Everybody goes back to their normal relationship of living together. The church is silent. And one might suggest the silence has extended for hundreds of years in the notion of sexuality and morals. You have this silence that has extended, if you will, from the Catholic Church to today. And now you have voices rising up of sexual abuse from the priests. Do you understand? Silence. You know it's happening, but you do not speak about it. So they did not speak out then, 15th century, 16th, 17th century. And they also have not spoken out until they are starting to today, breaking the silence about the abuse. And today's silence that's being broken is about the abuse of boys by priests, and also girls by priests and nuns. Now, the wealth of the church. And when you even go into our churches today, the Catholic churches, you see the wealth. And he points out in a documentary the layers of gold, the altars, the statues, the crucifixes. It's beautiful. Go to Italy, go to Paris, go into the Catholic Church. Wonderful edifice that reflect the wealth of the church. And the wealth of the church, as noted, has come from the labor of African slaves, because they were the ones who built the church in Brazil and in other areas that we're going to move to, you'll see. Do you understand? Now, group 2. Let's go. Begin.
Hi everyone. So we had 4, 5, and 6. For questions 4, the notions of colorism and hair and the arts is that the woman would be self-conscious of their hair, and they would basically straighten their hair from their afros because of media. They would be self-conscious, and because it would also affect their low self-esteem, and they would straighten their hair because of media, basically.
Question number 5 is about Master Boaz Gente, Capoeira trickster. So, Capoeira is a defense martial art used to defend himself from torture from plantation.
Capoeira was disguised as a dancing whenever they hear the cavalry was coming. Capoeira was keeping kids off the street.
And for Chica de Silva, she used to be a slave, and she was in a relationship with a white bushman who freed her, and they stayed together for 15 years.
They had 13 children, so the generation was disappeared. The children embraced the white side of them. She followed his way.
Good. Good clap. Okay. Thank you. Colorism. Colorism. You're not taking me, are you? Colorism. The notions of cream de cocoa, ebony, ivory, intermingling. Unfortunately, Brazil, the suggestion is that the lighter you are, the higher you can move in society, in what they call civilized society. So therefore, you are able to climb the ladder educationally, socially. One might suggest even in the churches they're allowed to move up high in the ranks based on color. Economically, and with colorism also with the female is the notion of straight hair. The notion that the straighter your hair is, the lighter you are, the more privileged you are looked upon. If you have African hair or the afro, one is suggested to be lower class. Now, you have those as depicted in society who are suggesting, and as I have always said, hair is to have fun with. You either have no hair, straight hair, a wig, braids, cornrows. Do you understand? For a woman. But Brazil does not look at it like that. So therefore, Brazil's image of the female, they have, and this is not from me, it is from what they do, the Brazilian butt lift. Do you understand? Where the derriere is lifted, and you have folks coming from different ethnic cultures who are getting the Brazilian butt lift. Because in Brazil, the suggestion is that the buttocks, and they're really trying to make it look more African. That's the reality of it. Do you follow? For the buttocks to be up and out. That is a signature of beauty. Now, along with that, yes, listen, I've been there. The notion is that, and it's you know, and it's a stigmatizing of women. Women who are now questioning what is beautiful. So much so that it said when the children, the girls, are young, someone comes into a beauty shop, a hair shop, and says, is there anything that we can do for her? So therefore the mother is suggesting that her own brown child who has curly hair, full hair, beautiful hair, is saying her hair is not good enough because it's not straight enough. The signature of whiteness. Do you understand? And if we are honest with one another in our own families, you see it. It's been spoken to me and told to me. So I know. It's written about that within all our own families, Caribbean, Latino, African American, African. The lighter complected you are, the differently, you're treated differently in some families. Now, Chica, let me speak to the arts. And it's portrayed through the arts in Brazil. When you look at television, when you look at film, they're artists who are getting the work of the light-skinned ones. Unfortunately, not the darker-skinned ones. You want to go to the theater in Brazil? That's what you're going to see. Unless you go into the smaller, the black community, where they have the arts. Then you will see your brown-skinned artists playing their roles, doing their work, their love, their passion. But coming into mainstream art in Brazil, they have not been able to break down the walls. It is a fight, it is a struggle, it is a glass ceiling. When you look at the magazines, the depiction of the magazine and who gets to be portrayed in the magazine are the lighter skin, not the darker skin. They are still fighting for their rights to be able to be portrayed. To look and see someone who really looks like me, you, and the others. Do you understand? And they are being treated as second-class citizens. I'm going to move on. I'm going to do this myself. Now, you're going to hand in your sheets, though. Now, we have Capoeira and Chica da Silva. Capoeira, that's clear. Capoeira starts out as a dance. It's martial arts in reality, but it has to be portrayed and depicted during the colonial times as a dance movement. So that, as the master Kente says, when the cavalry comes on the plantation, the beat of the music changes to that of the samba. And so this is the notion of the trickster. You understand? You have to, the African slave had to learn how to be a trickster in order to survive. So therefore it looks like you're doing a dance. Soon as they start leaving, it goes back to the martial arts and the practice of really capoeira, a way in which they had to learn to protect themselves, because they were always consistently being abused physically. Then you have Chica de Silva. Chica de Silva, the slave, and her paramour arrives. He's not a paramour until he gets there. He gets there, and he's her love interest. He gets there in August, September, October, November, December. That's a lot of love. By December, he is loving her, and she says to him, show me that you love me. Prove that you love me. How? Freedom. Freedom. He grants her freedom. But it is a real relationship. They are in relationship for 15 years. And she has 13 children. And everybody says, oh, 13, there's no birth control. Plain and simple. Every time a man lays with a woman, she's pregnant. Do you understand? That's how it is back in the day. Do you follow? And even today, I'm going to suggest. Do you understand? So you have large families. But remember, large families are needed on the plantation to do the work. In the South, they are needed for farming. In the Caribbean, they are needed to work also. So the notion of having many children is a positive notion. It is not looked at, today we say to our children, can you afford that one? Can you afford that one? Do you understand? That's the question. And then everybody jumps in to help. Back then it was just a given. Large families existed. Now, we look at her and we say identity. Because what she does is the white face. She's a smart woman. I go back and forth with her in my feelings because for myself, when I'm looking at it, I understand with the mindset of someone who's living in 2019. Do you follow? But I have to understand her as a woman living when she lived in her era. And she knew in order to survive in that culture, she had to fit and blend in. Eyes on me. Fit and blend in. And what she did, she wore white face. She couldn't do it today. She couldn't do it today, but that's back then. And they were sitting in her house, her plantation. Do you understand? She was at the head of the table. But what she did, as writers talk about it, is psychologically, what does that do to you? When you look in the mirror and you do not see yourself, but you are looking at a woman, who's wearing white face, and you take the white off, and you have black face. What does that do to your internal psyche? So much so that it is acknowledged that all of her, we call it passing, all of her children passed. All of the light-skinned children, the white children, they went right into upper Brazilian society. You understand? They did not look back. They did not look back and try to be black. Do you follow? They moved in that white Brazilian echelon of society, and they were able to move up. Now, what do we have next? European migration. This notion of whiteness started at the top, the government. The government, did I answer your question? The government. When the government intentionally relocates, says 4 million white folk, European, can come in to live in Brazil, and the idea behind it is that we will wipe out black society. That's the notion. Because the idea is that there will be an intermingling, there will be a co-creation, production of people and children, and those who come out, those white genes were supposed to take over. In reality, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. It was a foolish thought to begin with. Do you understand? But the government believed that it would happen. But if you know science, you know genes go all the way back. Do you follow? And that's why you have your little black Brazilians walking around being who they are today. Do you understand? Because there's no way you can whitewash a people. Now, the ideology of that, the notion behind that suggests, again, so now you're no longer speaking about slaveocracy, you were just talking about a culture of people. But, everybody say but. You are also suggesting that those who are dark-skinned are less than. And from then till now, you have started the notion and the ideology of second-class citizenship. Second-class citizenship. So you are not treating them as true human beings. Nascimento, moving to Nascimento, the writer, he says, you say racism doesn't exist? Yes, I could just choke myself and kill myself, put a bullet in my head, strangle myself. I could just die, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to keep hope alive. Hope alive that one day this Brazil will change. And that is his idea. He said, because I have lived 96 years. I have written about the 500 years of being treated as a second-class citizen because he's a dark-skinned Brazilian. You understand? Educated, yes. A go-to man when it comes to the notion of a voice for the black Brazilian. But still in his given society, second-class citizenship, treated and marginalized as a black Brazilian. You have MV Bill, the black rapper, who says, me too. I can tell you about the times I have been marginalized, tried to be invisible, and I am MV Bill the rapper. You understand? Society knows me. I can travel through Brazil, but when I go into white Brazil, I am marginalized, even though I have a place at the table in society. And I have a voice, my rapper voice, that tells the story of what it is and how it is, why it should not be, to live as a darker complected person in Brazil. Then you have Karina, who speaks about immigration, and then he says he's a unionist man, as well as a writer, activist, black activist, and he says when he sees all of this European immigration coming in, now this is a later day immigration, he says, no, we don't need it. And he sounds like Du Bois. and he says, use me, use my people in the union, allow me to work. Do you follow? Now, when you work, you can clothe your children when you work. You can educate your children when you work. You are economically viable and sound when you work. But getting into the union in Brazil is difficult. Getting a job, a union job. You know, we have union jobs here in New York City. You understand? Transit. Post office doesn't have a union. CUNY. You understand? Union jobs speak to security. Speak to a living that is stable. You do not have to worry about, well, some folks do, about being fired. You follow? You have the union who's got your back. He says you don't have to immigrate white folks to come in. You have enough people right here in Brazil to build your buildings. You understand? To build your businesses. We're here. Give us a chance. Also sounds to me, I hear Booker T. Washington, because Booker T. Washington said, let us pull us up by our bootstraps. We can work, and we know how to stay in our lane. That's what Booker T. said. Do you follow? Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. So now, and that's why what I want, you know, I hear this and I can go back and relate it to, oh gosh, to America. Now, okay, university, I have to get to university. University, education, we say, is the key. But in Brazil, they say, look at this university. Not this one, in Brazil. 1% black professors. And even when we graduate, Brazil says, the student says, when we come out into the world and I'm educated, but I'm darker skinned, you're educated, but you are fairer skinned. You of the fairer skin complected person earns 35% more than I do. The darker skin, educated, same education, graduating from the same university. Do you understand? Darker skinned person makes 35% less. Now, the notion in Brazil, and I'm going to be fast with this. Listen, racism, it's a myth. It's not a racial paradise. No way, Jose. Do you understand? No, it's not a racial paradise. It is the opposite of. And when you go to Brazil, look at go to the favelas and you see the poverty. You understand? You see how the people are living. They're honest people. But you have to beware the gangs too. So, listen, they want to work just like everybody else. And the difference is that in the United States, we had slavery. After slavery, we had a period, 10 years of Reconstruction. Did you have that in high school? You should have. Then after that, you have a period of Jim Crow and legalized segregation. That's what your Jim Crow laws were. You understand? Then the Jim Crow laws, some of them, not all of them, because some of them are still on the books. Then the notion was that United States is segregated in certain populations, geographic areas today. Do you follow? Certain parts of Brooklyn, Howard Beach, or whatever, you do not go into. Because we had a case in the 1980s where a black young man was just walking and was murdered. Do you understand? United States is still segregated. But Brazil says, we never had any segregation. We never had any problem with racism. It's not spoken about. It is totally ignored, but some folks are finding their voices and they are speaking out vocally, and others are writing. Others are rapping. You understand? Making music about it. So today there's a shift. It's not a mighty shift. It's a small little tidal wave that's happening. But there is a shift in the notion that the darker complected folks say we're not being treated the same. Okay, now listen. Tuesday, I am not going to be here. Class, don't look so happy. Class is going to be canceled. I'm going to send you an email definitely Tuesday morning, to remind you that class is canceled. Thursday, we are having the quiz on everything we have done today. It is going to be 10 essay questions and 2 extra credit. You understand? I'm also going to hand out a second extra credit, 5%. All right? So that's for Thursday. Tuesday, do what you need to do, but don't do it here. All right? And Thursday, I will see you. All right. Look, for those of you who still do not understand the film, look over it, because you're going to have to move from Africa to Brazil. Follow? Okay. Oh, let me have your sheets for those who did not speak.